welcome everyone to today's session on the 4 pillars of practice. What are they and how can they support your learning and development as part of Support Workforce Online Learning Week 2023? So the aims and objectives of today are to demystify the 4 pillars of practice and to illustrate how the use of the 4 pillars of practice can support your learning and development. And finally, to provide some signposting to resources that you may find useful. So what are the pillars of practice? Can I just like to make it really sure just now, right away, that the clinical practice pillar is the first one you see there. We have people in the room today from estates and facilities, business and admin, manager roles, education roles. What we're saying is we've named these 4 pillars. The first one is clinical practice, but if you take away that clinical practice title and replace it with operational skills pillar, that pillar could be for any role that you're working in. What we're saying is that that's the biggest part of your role, probably, is that kind of task focused, the doing thing within your role, whatever that role is. But have you considered these other 3 pillars? What do you think of facilitation of learning? Is that part of your role? Is leadership part of your role? Is service improvement part of your role? Or have you never really thought about it before? I've asked room full of support workers before. Do you see yourself as a leader? No, absolutely no. Facilitator learner? No. Service improver? No. But when you start to drill down and talk about what these actually mean within the role, they have. They actually suddenly, well, actually, I do that. I do support the education of my colleagues, new staff coming through. I support the service improvement. I contribute to audits. I make suggestions for change. So what we're saying is your role isn't all about that clinical practice or that operational skills pillar. It's trying to think about your role across these other pillars. The picture on the top there is the clinical development education framework. That's identifying knowledge, skills and behaviours expected at levels, career framework levels 2 to 4 from clinical support staff. And it's based on these 4 pillars of practice. Interestingly, there's also a post-reg framework in the clinical arena, and that looks at the knowledge, skills and behaviours required at levels 5 to 8, but still using these 4 pillars. The only difference is the final one, where we call it service improvement in the support worker areas. In the post-reg, they call it evidence, research and development, which is quite a mouthful. So you can see how service improvement is a wee bit more snappy. So if you start to look at your role across these 4 pillars, what are the opportunities for you moving forward? It can help you during PDPR conversations with your manager. You can say, I'm doing grand at these operational skills. I can't do any more. I'm doing really well. But what I'd love to do is develop some service improvement skills, or I'd like to be involved in more formally in facilitation of learning. So it can support those conversations with your manager. It's helpful when you're doing a job application form and you're putting your personal statement forward. People tend to focus on that operational skills, that clinical pillar, and say, I do this and I do that, and I do blood pressures and I do memos and I do this and I do whatever. But starting to think about these other pillars and demonstrating in an application what you do in these other pillars is equally important. It can benchmark your current level of practice. It can say, well, that's where I'm doing well, that's where I need to develop. Where am I doing really well, and where could I develop further? And it can guide further career progression. And Bev's story later on is going to tell you how she used the pillars of practice to progress in her role and her current role in quality improvement. For the managers in the room, it's equally important for those PDPR discussions with your staff, no matter who they are, if it's a support worker or a staff nurse or a senior operating officer. It doesn't really matter. These pillars are relevant to whatever role you're in. It can inform succession planning for your area, and it can support service redesign and improve skill mix when you're starting to look at a new team or a service change. What do you need within the role? Who needs the skills? Who needs these skills in these other areas? This pillar it says clinical pillar on the label, but actually it's looking at those softer skills, those non-technical skills. There's nothing in there that's going to tell you how to do blood pressure or take a urine specimen. It really is all about that, the importance of communication, the other softer skills. This is the heart, head, hand model, and it talks about these 3 areas that you need to incorporate when you are having an intervention with somebody to make it safe, effective and person-centred. The head looks at that decision-making, the knowledge you need to undertake whatever that job is, the problem-solving you have to undertake, the organising, the planning, the risk assessment. The hands is the technical part, that's the practical procedure, that's the task itself. But you also have to consider the communication, team working, empathy and showing dignity and respect for individuals. The model helps us to understand how we need to combine what you know with how you do things and the values you need to apply. Just think for a minute, if you are a patient and you're in the bed and somebody just wanders in and grabs your arm and starts to take your blood pressure, how would you feel? That person hasn't considered the head, we don't know what their knowledge is, and they certainly haven't considered the heart. They've just gone in and done that procedure on an individual. So how would that make you feel if you were the patient in the bed? Equally, how would you feel if you were that member of staff? Do you think you've delivered really good person-centred care? Another example could be if you're on reception and a person comes into the reception and they're asking about their appointment, and you are sitting there, you're on your phone, or you're no paying attention, you're no listening. How do you think that person would feel standing at reception? We've all been there, I think. Maybe no, but I think we've all been in a situation like that where we're not getting the full attention of somebody, they're not considering that empathy, they're not showing dignity and respect. So it considers these three things as being really important. When you combine the knowledge, skills, and technical and non-technical skills, we are delivering the best possible high-quality healthcare experience for patients and service users. So these are some of the components that are in that clinical pillar. So don't be afraid to go in and have a look at that if you think the clinical pillar area, that operational skills pillar, is somewhere that you would like to go and have a look at. There's things on human factors, competency, person-centred care. Have a wee look. If it's not of interest, that's fine, but don't be put off by the label. I'm going to hand over now to Gemma, who's going to talk a lot more about what the different pillars are. Gemma, over to yourself.
Thank you, Linda. Hi, everyone. So in the next few slides, we're going to explore the other three pillars. So Linda has talked about the clinical operational pillar, but the other three components to the pillars are the facilitating a learning pillar, so the role that we play in teaching and learning from other people. The leadership pillar, so regardless of our role, we play a part in shaping culture in the workplace. And then the service improvement pillar. Let's explore the first pillar. So the facilitation of learning pillar. So thinking about your learning as a support worker, it's not all about, going on and doing formal learning and education, but a lot of the learning that you do is actually in the workplace. So the model that I have looked into was the 70-20-10 model for learning and development, and it tells us that 70% of our learning takes place in real life on the job tasks that we do. This is our workplace learning. 20% of that is from feedback from colleagues and patients, and observing and working with role models. This is what we like to call as social learning. And then the 10%, the last part of that learning model, is from formal learning, and this is your structured learning. So if you're going on to doing a course or you're going on to doing a program. So keeping that in mind, that 7% of our learning as support workers come from on-the-job workplace learning, I would like to signpost to you the professional portfolio account. So you might have heard this over the past few sessions, over the couple of days, where the portfolio account has been shared with you. It assists us to record evidence of learning that's been gained in the workplace. So thinking about everything that you've learned in the workplace, you gather all that evidence and you put it into your professional portfolio account. This will then help you think about that career progression. So if you're not doing a lot of courses or formal education, a lot of what you learn on the job is what we call prior learning, and this can enhance you to then think about progressing on to doing different things. And like we'll hear from Bev's story later on, how she used that professional portfolio account to develop herself within that service improvement pillar. There's a very good video on Turas that tells you the benefits of the portfolio account. And there's also a very helpful guide that will help you get started with your portfolio. So looking at helping and supporting others, no matter what role we are in, we have either been part of someone's learning or we have been supported within our own learning. As a healthcare support worker practice educator, just because I have an educator in my title doesn't mean that you guys in the room that doesn't have an educator in your title can't be part of other people's learning. And it's so easy to think as support workers that we have a list of tasks to do, and you go in and you do your job because that's what you're used to doing. And you don't really necessarily put the tasks that you're doing within these pillars of practice. So hopefully after the end of today's session, you might reflect a little bit more on actually there is other elements that's involved within our roles. So like I said earlier, so our learning in the workplace isn't just about attending formal learning, but it's about that ongoing reflection of our own practices and experiences in the workplace. This is equally important to continuing to develop your knowledge and skills. So reflection and practice is a process where you take time to reflect on a single event or events that have happened that day. It's to examine what happened, what was good or what was bad about that experience. Would we change that experience, or was it a good experience, and how can we ensure that we can continue that good experience? Again, reflection, there's many tools out there, models out there in reflection, and again on TURAS, Support Work Essential, you'll find a lot of good information in around reflection. Also on the TURAS portfolio, you have a reflection account within there, and it might be a good idea to start reflecting after the end of the day about what's went well or what could have been better. So the next pillar I'd like to share with you is our leadership pillar. Some of you might have already attended the leadership webinar this morning. I was part of that one as well, found it very good, and Leading for Change is a very good resource to use. So leaders are required at all levels. They aren't just those working in identified roles. Leader might refer to a position in an organizational structure, but leadership refers to attributes and abilities of the individual in a given role. It's the ability of an individual or a group of people to influence and guide members of a team and to really shape that culture. A role model is a person that's looked to by others as an example to be imitated. Our role model is someone that we can learn from, who displays the right set of skills, traits, and behaviours. Again, just a quote that is on the screen there that I've taken from Brené Brown is self-awareness and self-love matter. Who we are is how we lead. Again, on the TURAS modules that I talked about earlier, the modules go into a bit more about leadership, so the different models of leadership that's out there, and again, Leading for Change on the TURAS site, if that's a pillar that you're quite interested in learning a little bit more about, maybe you want to develop in leadership a bit more, have a bit more understanding, there are resources out there to go and seek that out. So we're on to our last pillar here. So our service improvement pillar. Service improvement involves everyone. It is a process of making changes to improve people's experiences of services and making them better. It can involve working with others to make change related to direct person-centered care or more efficient running of services. It can also involve making changes to your own practice or suggesting changes others can make within the service to improve it for people. Service improvement involves working with others in order to improve the quality of people's experience and provide safe, effective, and person-centered care. It can help health and care be delivered in ways which are more timely, efficient, and fair. So the last slide I would like to share with you is service improvement. So service improvement is usually the pillar that people understand the least. I'd like to share a short video that explains what service improvement is and the impact it can have. You might have even realized after watching this video that you are already doing service improvement or have used some service improvement tools within the video. The animated video is based on a real project that was carried out in the Orthopaedic Rehabilitation Unit in Wood End Hospital in Aberdeen. It has a clinical focus, but this could just as easily have been a project carried out across an admin team, auditing and improvement in paperwork processes, or a domestic services team waiting to improve their cleaning schedule.
NHS Education for Scotland. Service improvement. Making things even better. Have you ever wondered what is service improvement? Meet Sheila. She is a senior charge nurse within a busy orthopaedic rehab ward. Sheila has been reflecting on the Healthcare Support Worker Learning Framework and the 4 pillars of practice. She is keen to develop and support her staff across the service improvement pillar. Sheila asks members of the team to volunteer to carry out an audit on personal care. This is a multidisciplinary team, and she wants to check the quality of personal care being offered to patients. Alison and Lukasz are healthcare support workers within Sheila's team. They have been learning about service improvement on the support worker central area on Turas and are keen to be involved in the personal care audit. Their colleague Audrey also wants to get involved. They decide to create a questionnaire to collect patient feedback on the personal care being offered. Alison, Lukasz and Audrey ask each patient, "Have you been offered a bath or shower today?" They collate all the information and create a display board to visualise the results. They wonder how, as a multidisciplinary team, they can improve the personal care that is offered to their patients. They decide to use the model for improvement to help them. They know what they want to achieve and what they need to measure. Next, they create a plan called a PDSA cycle to test out a change idea. Alison, Lukasz and Audrey decide to design a poster that can be put next to a patient's bed. This will remind all staff in the team to offer every patient a bath or shower daily. Sheila and her team discuss the use of this new poster at the start of shift handover and make sure everyone is aware of the improvement work. All staff within the team are now offering patients the opportunity to have a bath or shower. As part of the improvement work, Alison, Lukasz and Audrey repeat the personal care questionnaire with all patients. With the new data they have collected, they can see there has been an improvement. Sheila explains to the team that this is a great example of how healthcare support workers can be involved in service improvement. Service improvement doesn't need to be big projects. It's actually better to start small and test your ideas first. Sheila encourages the healthcare support workers in the team who want to learn more about service improvement to explore the learning activities on Support Workers Central.
Hi, afternoon. Hope that you enjoyed the video and hope it's given you an insight to explain what service improvement can look like in practice. We know it can be challenging to see how the pillars can be used in your own area of practice. There's no step-by-step guide to follow. And for that reason, there isn't one size that fits all. Development has to be personalised to each individual. It really is very much dependent on your current role, on the opportunities that are available, and your own skills and interests. I'd like to share with you Bev's story in her absence, and hopefully this example can help you to see how the pillars can be used for development. So Bev's worked in health and care for over 20 years in various roles, including support worker roles, as an occupational therapy assistant and as an associate practice educator. So Bev first found out about the pillars of practice while she was working in her associate practice educator role. At the time, she was supporting other support workers, and this was a perfect tool to help her to be able to support them to look at their learning and development needs. So Bev's helped others to use the pillars to work out the skills gaps that they may have or other areas that they may want to develop in. This has been really useful for the support workers and has helped to guide conversations with their line managers and conversations around about their appraisals. What Bev hadn't done was to use the pillars to help develop herself. So she decided to look at what skills she had, what areas she was interested in, and what tools and resources were available to help support her own development. The one pillar that always stood out for Bev and really caught her attention was service improvement. She knew the basics about this, but she really wanted to find out more. So Bev decided this was an area she wanted to focus on. So she looked at the resources that could help her to do that. She knew about the Pillars of Practice learning modules on Support Worker Central on TURAS, and so she went about accessing these. She downloaded the workbook and she slowly started working her way through the 3 modules on service improvement. She then looked for other learning resources and she found the Quality Improvement Zone on TURAS. Bev's top tip really is to look at any learning platform that's available to you. Just search for whatever interests you. For Bev, that was improvement, but for you, that could be leadership, it could be facilitation of learning, it could be anything. So anything that you're interested in and that you're looking for, just go ahead and search. There's always plenty of information available. Bev also looked into local courses that were available. For her in NHS Grampian, there was a Quality Improvement Practitioner course, which was available to everyone. Again, there are numerous local and national courses available that can support learning in all areas of the pillars. Some may require support from your line manager to attend, but there are all sorts of development opportunities, and these are the conversations that should be encouraged to be happening locally around about healthcare support workers development. So during Bev's experience of using the Pillars of Practice, she found that her knowledge expanded within the service improvement pillar. It was also positively impacting the other pillars. What she realised is that all 4 pillars of practice work together to strengthen each other. So what you learn in one will actually strengthen your practice in another. The improvement work that Bev got involved in has seen her build on her leadership and facilitation of learning skills. She began to take a lead on some small service improvement projects. She also began to share what learning she had in relation to service improvement, the tools that she'd been using, with her colleagues. And she was really keen to showcase the work that she'd been involved in and what she'd been doing within the team with others. And so went about developing posters to share that work and submitted these to various quality improvement events. Each step along the way, Bev's skills and confidence grew. She used the TURAS professional portfolio as a way to record her learning as she progressed through her journey. She uploaded the workbook from the service improvement modules into TURAS. She completed courses and had certificates from these, and she uploaded them also into TURAS portfolio. These acted as evidence of the learning that she'd been undertaking. This didn't all happen overnight. This happened over a period of time. So it's about 12 months all told that Bev was working on this area, developing her skills slowly and steadily and building her confidence and skill set. Then at the start of 2022, Bev saw a job advert for a Quality Improvement and Assurance Coordinator. And at first she was terrified about the prospect of applying for it, but she knew she had to. And so she did, she applied and she got the job. So when we talk about levels 2 to 4 in relation to development, this is not the same as when we talk about Agenda for Change pay banding levels, bandings 2 to 4. There's always a distinguishing mark that we need to make there. But what's really important, and what Bev would say, is that, however, when you increase your learning and your knowledge and development across those levels 2 to 4, that can help to support your learning and development, and it helps create opportunities for you to potentially apply for those higher paying banded roles. And sometimes these roles may offer you a chance of a career direction. It's not always a linear path. There's different opportunities that you can explore, and the 4 pillars of practice can help you to do that. So Bev was a band 4 when she applied for the new post, which was Agenda for Change band 6. That's the coordinator post. There's lots of NHS job roles advertised now, and they consider not only formal qualifications, but also equivalent experience and recognition of prior learning. Bev had used the experience that she'd gathered and documented in her TURAS portfolio to evidence this learning, and that helped her to show and to demonstrate that she'd gained the knowledge and skills to work at that level without a formal qualification, and that helped to support that application, that she was then successful in that particular post. So if you're part of the support workforce, there's a vast range of opportunities in the NHS for you, no matter if you're an NMAP support worker or if you're in estates and facilities or business and admin role. What Bev would say is that you are the curator of your own destiny. So take time to work out what interests you the most and then use the tools and resources available to make things happen. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to share Beth's story with you, and I really hope that it's inspired you to consider how you could use Pillars of Practice for your own development.
We said we've introduced you quite a few resources there, so there's a slide there that has links, although the links are going in the chat as we speak. The first link there is about the 4 pillars of practice and the development education framework. That was the clinical NMAP framework that I talked about earlier. If you're in a clinical role and you are looking to develop yourself within that area, knowledge, skills and behaviours required at each of the career framework levels, you might want to have a wee look at that again. The learning activities to support the 4 pillars, that's the link there. Gemma went over quite a few of those and mentioned the modules that are there to support your learning around these. And if you go in, you do a bit, you do the whole thing, there's links to other learning. So if you get the bug and you want to learn more, there's resources and links within that resource that will take you to further learning as well. Support Worker Central is the clinical support worker website. So there's loads of information on there, resources, events, material that we've mentioned today are all housed there, but don't be put off because it's a clinical website. Please dip in, have a look. There's a whole host of resources and links in there. The Support Workforce Hub is the Business and Admin and Estates and Facilities website. And there's information there about the Access newsletter. For business and admin supports and facilities staff. There's information on education pathways and learning for the support workforce in NHS Scotland. The next link takes you to the Healthcare Support Worker newsletter. You can sign up for that. That's a clinical, again, don't be put off with that term, clinical, information and newsletter there that you can sign up for. It comes out quarterly. There's loads of information on new resources, good practice, people sharing their stories, sharing their service improvement journeys, sharing educational achievements. It's quite inspirational sometimes, some of the stories we get in for that newsletter. So please sign up for that. And we mentioned that TURAS portfolio, that's the link there. It'll take you to a page. If you're not already signed up for a TURAS portfolio, it'll take you to the page. There's videos there on how to sign up. There's videos there on how to develop a share pack. And we don't want to get too much information, but the TURAS portfolio is yours. It's free of charge. There's not many things in life these days that are free of charge. You can sign up for that portfolio. You decide who sees things in it. It's absolutely confidential. If you want to use it in your PDPR conversation with your manager, you could develop what's called a share pack, and there's a video there that shows you how to use that as well. You can decide what your manager sees, and you can send these things to your manager before your appraisal meeting, so they've got a chance to see it. And we talked about that, using it for job applications. If it says demonstrate working at a certain SCQF level, a specific Scottish Credit Qualifications level, if you've got a really robust portfolio, you may well be able to demonstrate that. And if you're going for a course, you may be able to reduce the length of the course if you can demonstrate learning in specific areas. So it's quite a key tool to use. So now is the time for questions. Is the NMAP framework applicable for AHP physiotherapy? Absolutely, the NMAP framework is appropriate for everybody in nursing, midwifery and allied health. Demonstration video of pulling portfolio together, that's in that link we said about the portfolio, so there's a link there that tells you how to develop that.
There's a question there about can the pillars be applied as much to admin and secretary roles? So yeah, back to what Linda was saying at the start of the session, think of that clinical pillar as that operational skills pillar. Don't be put off by the title. You can just as easily apply the learning from all 4 pillars of practice across to any particular role, irrespective of which job family you are in. There is something to be learned in all of the 4 pillars of practice, and hopefully there'll be something within each of the modules and some of the learning activities that you would find helpful to support you in your role.
And we did get some questions as well before the event. And one was actually for a business and administration person. It's usually nurses and doctors that get involved with research. Is there any way for clinical support workers and non-clinical support staff to become part of that process? Absolutely. I think we've mentioned during the session today was the quality improvement zone, where you can find out more information on quality improvement. You can undertake projects with that. You can access the module in Support Worker Central on the pillars. Getting involved in audit, making suggestions for change. And, you know, it's not all about big audits. It's not all about big things for change. It can be these wee suggestions that make a difference. And somebody put in the chat earlier during Gemma's session that they had started doing something in their community area that's now taken on board by the rest of the team, because they're recording it. She was recording information, and now the whole team records it that way because it helps in the information gathering that they're undertaking. So things can be small changes. In the module, the service improvement module, there's some really good examples there of Dumfries and Galloway, where they undertook a service improvement project and it involved the whole team, and they were all making small examples of change, and all these things make a difference. Alison Hall is a specialist lead in the workforce team, and she's happy for any of the business and administration facilities people to get in touch with her directly to discuss service improvement if it's something that we'd like to know more about. And we're happy in the clinical team for anybody to get in touch in the healthcare support worker mailbox with any information they would require around service improvement as well.
I think we've got one from Lindsay. My workplace tell us that they do not have funding for Band 4s, and so we cannot progress to this. Do you think the pillars can help me do something about this, or will it be out of my control? Kind of maybe a bit out of control. It depends on organizational needs for that development, but it doesn't stop you from developing yourself within those pillars practice, Lindsay. You never know what might come along down the line. Very much like what Bev's done, you know, she never thought that she would go in that direction, but she has. So it shouldn't stop you from, you know, thinking about the pillars of practice and developing yourself within that. And again, you just don't know what opportunities are on the horizon. Anything to add to that one, Linda?
Yeah, I think times they are a-changing, I think is the answer to that one. Previously, there were very, very few assistant practitioner roles out there. The tables have turned and there's a lot more interest in that role. Boards are actually recruiting quite big numbers as trainee assistant practitioners. And they are bringing them on board, people internally and externally. They're supporting them through a programme of learning. So there's a professional development award that some are using the HNC in healthcare practice, and they're seeing it now as a role where you come in and you develop into. So there's a lot of things going on around that assistant practitioner role. So I suppose it's a watch this space moment as boards start to come on board with the changes and the developments within that role. And I think Gemma's right, and Leslie said that sometimes the development you're undertaking may not lead to a promoted post within your specific role, say a clinical role or a business and admin role. It may be out with that, where Bev went for a kind of clinical role, and the progression she went to was in a quality improvement, a totally different field, where she got that promoted role. So if that's what you're looking for, it's about keeping your eye out, broadening your knowledge, experience, and when these posts do come up, have been ready for them. Where can we train to become a career framework level 4 person? It's really waiting till you see the posts coming up within your board. They will be advertising. I know the board that Gemma comes to have recently had two or three new quite big cohorts of assistant practitioner trainees, Gemma?
Yep, just one recently in August. I think there's just over 40 odd, and last year same numbers, and again January intake. So yeah, I think a lot of boards are taking this role on. It's, you know, it's only really been well advertised and known in the past year really for nursing and midwifery support workers. But yeah, keep an eye out. It doesn't mean that there might not be a recruitment drive next year, you know, intakes in August or January. But yeah, like Linda says, a lot of the healthcare support worker workforce is changing. I've been a support worker for 14 years and it's changed dramatically from when I first started. And yeah, there absolutely is more development opportunities within the support workforce.
From Kimberly, she's just asking about modern apprenticeships, and are these going to be more accessible?
Yeah, good question. There's a lot of discussion around modern apprenticeships just now. I can't answer yes or no. There's discussions ongoing about these. Is it a way forward? It could be. We don't know. There's a lot of modern apprenticeship used down in NHS England, graduate apprenticeships even for nursing and things, and physiotherapy. Are they going to come up here again? We're in that kind of flux time at the moment. There's a lot of discussions going on behind the scenes. We're involved heavily in a Scottish Government Healthcare Support Worker Commission that's looking at the education and development of support workers moving forward. And modern apprenticeships was definitely one of the options that were discussed. There were many options discussed and are still being discussed. So I think it is a watch this space moment at the moment. There's so much going on for support workers, but behind the scenes and things that are coming on board. We've got the new framework that I mentioned earlier. We've got a medicines administration framework for levels 3 and 4. There's just so many things going on at the moment. If you can complete your learning log, just a wee reminder to complete your learning log. And if you aren't already signed up for Professional Portfolio, now's your opportunity to do that. Thanks very much for coming along today. It's been a pleasure, and I hope to hear from you sometime soon. Thank you.